There is an island, and you have some power. It will take strength, cunning, deception, and a little bit of diplomacy to come out on top. So how exactly does a single earl come out on top? Well, I'll leave the details to you, but no matter the outcome, there will only be one ruler in the end. This is the birth of a kingdom. This is Ortus Regni. Ortus Regni is a card game, and you'll begin with a deck of 24 cards that represent the actions you take over your life as Earl over your lands. You'll set up your play area with a palace from which you will rule, a draw pile from which you'll gain cards, and a starting hand of 5 cards. This will establish the beginnings of your earldom. You'll then seed the included pouch with a cube of each player's color. These will be used to determine which side the Vikings will ally with when they inevitably invade. Once set up to play, you can choose one of 3 actions to do on your turn. First, you can play a card from your hand to the play area. You'll then carry out the effect of the played card. In this case, a land is added to your fief. Next, you can recruit soldiers into your army reserve. You'll also need lands in your fiefdom in order to do so. And finally, you can attack the enemy if you have available army units. Remember, you can only choose one of the 3 standard actions per turn. You can, however, construct any number of towers on your turn as a free action. This is done by playing a card from your hand face down in front of your fiefdom. These towers will act as defenses when being attacked. The end of your turn is signaled by drawing a new card from the deck into your hand. A round of Ortus Regni consists of each player taking their action and drawing a card in succession. Once the final player in a round has taken their turn, then the Vikings take over. The Vikings are a non-player controlled faction that will cause chaos upon their arrival. If there was no combat in the turn, a Viking timer marker is moved forward. After multiple rounds, the 8 timer markers will eventually be exhausted. Once that happens, Viking forces are drawn from the deck, and a cube is drawn from the bag to determine which side the Vikings will fight for. Ortus Regni boils down to a game of last earl standing. There are 2 ways to be eliminated. First, if you can no longer draw cards from your deck, you lose. This represents you dying of old age. All of your life's actions have been used up, and you have no heir to carry on the family legacy. You can also lose if you have no remaining castles or palaces. Each of these buildings represents your rule over a distinct fiefdom, and a ruler with no lands is no ruler at all. You can lose your fiefdoms to attacks from your opponent or the Vikings, so you must prepare to defend yourself from all sides. Like any card game, Ortus Regni lives and dies by its card and ability design. And you might have noticed that there are no words on the cards. Instead, you are expected to recognize and internalize the effects of each card by sight. I was skeptical of such a design choice. I'm all for artistic integrity and all, but I'd rather it not come at the cost of functionality. That said, it only took 2 or 3 games for me to be mostly familiar with the cards in the game. Since there are only 15 different cards that you can play, it's not as daunting as it might initially seem, and the full bleed images of medieval art splayed across the table is truly something to behold. Let's take a closer look at some of the cards that are included in the game. There is the Prince, who along with adding some might to the battlefield can be stationed to a castle. If you play a banner card in the future, you can bequeath your earldom to the Prince. This means shuffling your discard pile back into your draw deck, effectively lengthening the rule of your family. Then there's the Monk, who can be sent as an emissary to the Viking clans. This will add 2 cubes of your color to the draw bag, making it much more likely that the Viking horde will side with you upon their arrival. Next is the Joust card, which acts as a challenge to your opponent. A minigame of poker is played, and the winner can walk off with the other player's valuable properties. Treachery cards can be used to try and assassinate your enemy's lords, including their beloved prince. Of course, they can play an allies card to call for help to try and thwart your attempt. A political struggle ensues which will determine the fate of someone's life. This is just a taste of what's included in the box, but hopefully you can tell from this small sample size that the card actions deliver on the theme in a big way. Every action you take feels like something an actual medieval ruler would do in order to emerge victorious. Though the card pool is limited, it's flexible and allows for all sorts of viable strategies. You can fill your deck with prince cards and bequeath your earldom multiple times in the hopes that your opponent eventually succumbs to old age. Or you can take the direct route and smash down their castles. My personal favorite is making friends with the Vikings and letting them do the dirty work as I bolster my defenses. Mixing and matching approaches to suit your personal style is half the fun of Ortus Regni. Ortus Regni isn't a card system. It's a self-contained game. Expansions only allow for more than 2 players to join in, but they will have the same exact cards available to them. Even though deck construction is a huge part of the game, the limited card pool and small deck size means that it isn't as daunting as something like Magic the Gathering or even Hearthstone. This means you'll become intimately familiar with all the actions, and more importantly, if you have a regular gaming partner, you'll start to learn their tendencies and playstyle as well. I've only begun to scratch the surface of what's available, but building my deck with my opponent in mind leads to all sorts of enjoyable second and third guesses. Ortus Regni is a game that grows with you, and the game has certainly grown on me. Only time will tell if there's enough card variety to make it a mainstay in my play rotation.